Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, a serial technology entrepreneur, a guy who's launched 30 companies, failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 to success. And I turned that crazy roller coaster of a ride into my book, which is called Fail Hard, Win Big. And this is where I teach people how you turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage and how custom software always played a defining role in every win. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology, where we help other software engineering teams with our US-based and Latin America-based software engineers. And today we have Stephen Miller out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, who is the CTO of a public company named Steelcase. And Stephen has had his career at Steelcase, rising up the ranks from manager to VP to CIO to CTO. So we're going to have some fun here. Stephen, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. Stephen, if you would, walk our listeners through the journey of your career.
Well, my career is kind of like starting from the mailroom and getting all the way up to the executive floor.
I love it.
I started off at the help desk at our company, and over 26 years, I've worked my way up the ranks. So it's been quite a journey, and that journey's involved, being based overseas for a little while, being based here in Grand Rapids in Michigan, and really a lot of great experiences along that way.
And that's amazing. And, Stephen, you and I have a few years on us. Our parents' generation always said you go to one company and you stay there your whole life. But that was their generation. And our generation, that's not as common. But you're a picture-perfect case of, and I love how you said, starting from the mailroom / help desk, now CTO of the company. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
How did you pull that off? And once again, we're of the same generation here. It's not easy to have stayed at one company and still rise in the technology world. Often when you wanted to get to the next level, you were almost forced to jump companies just based on the nature of the job market. How'd you pull this off? I love it.
Well, the fun part is with Steelcase, it's been a company that while it's over 100 years old, it's been kind of reinventing itself pretty regularly along the way. So riding the waves of where it's kind of a reinvented company has allowed me to move forward in my career. And it feels like you're jumping to a new company, but instead you're moving to help start up a new division or help integrate a new business with the primary business or things like that. So it certainly hasn't been boring. It's felt like nonstop change and just moving to the next big opportunity that's created by the company itself evolving over time. So while I've been at the same company for a long time, the job has not felt like the same job, and the company has not felt like the same company through that whole time, which has been exciting. It's kind of like the business is just big enough that you see all those opportunities, but not so big you get lost, so that the person in the mailroom can't come up and move up the ranks, which I think is pretty special.
Well, and that says a lot about the company culture, because that's not common. And, that's an inspiration. Our parents' generation had the right idea, but things evolved and changed. So tell us more about Steelcase.
Yeah, so Steelcase is a company that makes office furniture. We've been around over 100 years. And if you're working in an office, there's a good chance you're using some of our products. It's a pretty exciting business because every time there's a major super cycle change of how work happens in the world, it radically changes what products, obviously, what we do and what we provide. So it's been quite the roller coaster. If you can imagine like exiting COVID and then moving into the AI super cycle we're in now, it's been quite a roller coaster of what people need and what they want in their office spaces, And so it's a very user-centered company where we apply design thinking and human-centered design to everything that we do, which makes it pretty exciting. It's like a nonstop exploration of what's going to make companies awesome next, and what are people going to want from the places they work next.
And so how in a office furniture manufacturing company, and we'll get more into your projects you're working on, but tell us how Steelcase has stayed a technology-driven company while in the office manufacturing space.
Yeah, so there's this intersection between the technology and the products where we've all experienced this, right? If you go and you're having a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting and you're doing it with a group, and you're in a workplace, you can tell pretty quick whether that space was designed properly for those sorts of things. And so there's this natural intersection because technology is part of work and it's part of the workplace too. And that's where it's really, crossed the line. And it makes it exciting because we have partnerships with like Microsoft and Logitech and IBM and a whole bunch of companies that we build these solutions together. While we're a furniture company, we have this huge impact into the tech world and influence with them and interaction with them on what gets created and rolled out to the world.
Excellent. So as part of your journey through the company, through mailroom/help desk, all the way to CTO, at one point you were CIO, and then your company made a switch and wanted you to be CTO. Talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, so that was based on an observation that if you looked at the customers that were coming to talk to us, it was always like facilities managers and designers, right? Designing new workplaces. And what started to happen is they were bringing their CIO. And that's because when they were looking at their workspaces and how to design them for the next generation, it had this huge technology element. Not just, budging for the basic AV things that you needed to do, but technology was clearly changing what the design of the space would be. And so they started to include their CIOs in the visits because they wanted to talk like, how do I think about this? How do I think about the next generation of Teams and Zoom? And, how do I set rooms up to support that? And how many meeting rooms should I have in my workspace? And what technology should be in them? And all those types of things. So the discussion started to go there on a regular basis to the point where I was giving tours with customers almost every day. And so you're really feeling effectively part of the sales organization. And that is where our CEO recognized that there's this crossover that we need to recognize and enable. And so she asked me to step up and add that T to my title to recognize an influence in the products we create and the people we create them for, and to act as a representative of the CIO community out there in what we make. And so I get called upon to say, like, what would a CIO want this product to do? What are they looking for? So things like making it easy to service AV technology inside of our products and things like that is a big thing that I get to be an advocate for with our customers, which is a really fun part of the job.
Gotcha. Tell us how software engineering plays a role in your company.
Yeah. So we have a really hard challenge. So our company, if you were to look at the permutations of products that we make that you can buy from us, it's 50 quadrillion. So you think about that, that's one with 15 zeros times 50.
That's a lot of SKUs, lots of products.
That's right. And so, every human on earth could order millions of products from us before we'd make the same thing twice. So we have to do that to meet the needs of the design community who bring a creative art to what they do. So we have to offer this incredible amount of variety. But to make that accessible so you could actually order stuff and make it is a massive software development challenge and a massive AI challenge and a massive data science challenge to make that actually accessible so you can execute against it, so that they can buy those products, have them custom manufactured and delivered to them all on one truck, is quite a magic trick from a software development perspective. So in our world, solving for that is like the heart of what we do. And making that crisp and easy to do is a big part of what we do from the software engineering side.
How many different products did you say there were?
50 quadrillion, more than 50 quadrillion.
Quadrillion.
Yes.
I'm almost laughing if that's a real number. I mean, that's insane. So I like how you put that in perspective now, where how software engineering has a play, because you have this challenge of how do you present 50 quadrillion products without overwhelming people.
Right, exactly. And making it actually a good experience is super challenging. Yeah.
And I love it. You just gave me a whole different perspective of a software challenge at a manufacturing company. I never would imagine so many different products. So tell us about your software engineering team. How many engineers you have, where they're located, the work model that your team follows, whether it's remote, hybrid, on-site.
Sure. So we are a global company. So we have really headquarters of IT around the world. So we have major business centers that we run out of, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Monterrey, Mexico, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Cluj, Romania. So we have teams based across there. Our software development team in total is about, 70 people that are doing specifically that type of work out of a team that's closer to 780 in total. But that is because there's different elements of software engineering. There's like coding,
Yes.
and then there's like software engineering related to all those products. You have to program the behaviors of those products and the systems. And that is where we have a very large team. That is where we have maybe a 270 person group that programs products into the systems. And so it's really kind of an interesting mix. And so we have groups that run like your core ERP environments. So that's kind of like the standard global platforms. And then we have go-to-market teams that are doing software engineering for specific markets that we serve around the world, and different markets like education versus large companies and that sort of thing. So it's kind of broken up along those lines, where you have some engineering teams that are focused on the core capabilities like manufacturing, and other ones that are focused on going to market in very specific ways for very specific audiences.
Gotcha. So within your different headquarters of IT that you have around the world, are employees working in office, hybrid, remote as part
Yep.
of those areas?
Yeah, so mostly in the office. However, they would also say an element of it is hybrid because they're kind of global and around the clock. So there's crossover times with teams where you're connecting remotely to the team that's in a different region. And so we have a setup that's kind of mixes those things. And teams are set up into studios that they have, and each studio has, we call it a front porch, where that has like the connection capabilities for their peers around the world and the people dialing in remote. So that's how we bring people in remotely, is in the
Okay.
front porch of their studio. It's pretty cool stuff. And, but it allows them to stay connected to the people around the world and have a way to bring them in to their workplace on a regular basis.
I like it. Is that front porch something you guys built, or is that a product out there that you guys use to facilitate that?
Well, that was a huge research project that we did where our product researchers worked studying IT teams working in Agile and what exactly they needed. And so we probably spent 6 years of research to dial it in and to create the solution, because there wasn't anything like it out in the world. So it ended up creating a whole new line of products that we make. And it's like the hottest thing that when CIOs want to come and talk, they want to see it, because it's a totally different way of wiring your workspace to help agile software development teams. And it's pretty cool, where it's like their own studio with their own kit of parts in their studio they use, but they dial their space in day to day however they need it. And so we created a space that allows them to do that. And we were also measuring along the way, like, did it make them any better? And so a lot of CIOs out there, you track velocity, right? If you're in the agile world.
Sure.
So velocity, we've been watching this across, all these teams jump 38% when we
Wow.
changed it. And we have all the documentation on that out on steelcase.com for companies that want to check it out. But that, I mean, any CIO would take that every day of the week. Same team, but getting 38% more out, every sprint cycle is a good thing.
Now, is that an option you guys offer when you're setting up workspaces and offices for people? That's pretty cool. That could be its own product on its own.
Yeah.
And figuring out global work and how to have it more productive is the constant challenge we're all working through. Wow, that's unique. And I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, as a tech leader here, as we're approaching Q4 of 2025, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Yeah. So I think we're all facing the change in the way work is happening with AI and this major super cycle of work and how it's adjusting, where we can all agree, like, work's going to be a little different, and
No
especially
doubt.
in the software world, right? And we're all navigating that. So I think that creates some uncertainty to how do you staff teams, the skill sets you need on those teams, how you're actually going to execute what you're doing a little differently as these things enter in. But the surprise gotcha that can be there too is, how do you govern it? Because it's, I don't know if other CIOs are seeing what I am, but it sure seems like the idea of data governance and actually AI and agent governance has become a huge deal, because you can be real excited to jump into it, but you can do it wrong and have pretty spectacularly wrong results. And so being able to properly govern that and govern the quality and the access to the data that you're using to do it becomes a major factor. So for what it's worth, what a big thing on mine is not just adopting those things and seeing how they change the workplace, both for us and other companies, right? But also making sure we govern it the right way so that we don't make the news for doing things the wrong way. Boy, that is on my mind a lot.
That's
To dial that
definitely
in.
a huge problem. And, with the advance of AI and what it's done, it's only as good as the data you have as a company. And let's face it, most companies, new or old, the way they've grown up, you have data all over the place. You have data labeled different ways. To truly have that central data lake is a huge product in itself, let alone then the governance over it to make sure it's consistent, because that's really the only way to maximize what AI can bring to the table.
That's right.
MIT published a report last month that 95% of AI projects at Fortune 500 companies are failing with a zero or negative ROI.
Right.
And at the end of the day, the underlying reason is often the data is a part of it, but maybe they're choosing the wrong project or the wrong case studies. And I think in this world of generative and agentic AI, companies are getting 90% of the way on projects, but that last 10%, they're banging their head against the wall and they kind of throw it up. Agree, disagree? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and you can get this focus on adoption, but not actual transformation and results. And it's very easy to get excited about seeing a lot of activity with things like Copilot and other things, but not paying attention to what did it actually change, and what barriers are you actually removing with some of these things. And for what it's worth, I've seen the same thing. It is very easy to be distracted and make some investments that don't pay off when you're not focused on what is the barrier really trying to remove and what's the transformation you're really trying to drive. And so like I was bringing up to you before about like where our energy goes, it's making it easier to interface with all those products. And so we recently launched a generative AI tool to the design community, our dealer community, that helps with that process. And because it was all about, we recognize there's a barrier. We recognize it is absolutely hard to do your job as a designer when you've got so much to sort through. And so by taking that barrier down, it's not been about just adoption of the tool. It's been about, is it actually changing the work that you're doing? And is your day different than it was before? And so I'm super excited because the reactions we're getting back is like, it was just so hard to do my job. I went home burned out. And as a designer, I'm a creative. I need to have energy. And to get me back where I feel like I have energy again, because I'm not sorting through catalogs. You know what I mean? I'm focused on, I want products that have an aesthetic of X. Can you help me find a whole bunch of them so that I can, the right ones, right? So that I can make the right design for this customer and show it to them. Getting them into that mode, that's awesome. That is what it's all about.
It could be hard to sort through 50 quadrillion products in a catalog.
Just a little.
Within your engineering organization, have you guys adopted AI tools as part of the engineering workflow? And that's a tough question because, the tool every week, one's better than the other and, new things are being rolled out. Where are you guys at in that process?
We certainly have. And I think we're doing a lot of things that a lot of companies are doing about, just like you said, they leapfrog each other every week, and we're staying on top of that. The biggest place where we've been making this investment is actually in the validation of data. So in the engineering of how do you make sure that all that data is right that we were just talking about, and make sure that it's of high quality when we're launching new products and things like that. That is where we put a lot of energy, and it's driven a lot of value, because one mistake is a big problem. You ship the wrong desks to the customer, that's a problem. And so to make sure that we're exceeding, like putting in high quality there and catching problems and such in a really complicated data set has been a high value there for us.
Gotcha. So I like to joke, when you do it wrong enough, long enough, you figure out how to do it right. And in the business world, in the entrepreneurial world, oftentimes the best way to learn, unfortunately, is by failing. And I'm of the mindset, if you're a business leader, if you're not failing, you're not pushing the envelope hard enough. You're playing it too safe. What are some brutal lessons you've learned that you wish you could tell yourself 10 or 15 years ago that you know now?
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's one key here that I wish someone would have told me much earlier on. And it is the root cause of many of my failures. And that is, this job is human-centered, meaning you must learn human-centered design. You must learn that. If you dig into design thinking and what they teach at the Stanford D School, it will change your world. It will change the way you look at things. It will change the way you talk about things. It will change the way you look at the problems that the business comes to you with. And I made so many mistakes solving the wrong problems, and because I didn't really understand that, and I hadn't learned that yet. And it has rewired my brain to see these situations a little differently. And it has helped so much in having discussions with people that are actually valuable and being able to have a conversation with someone that's the head of design or the head of our brand side, or in a way that we can talk, you know what I mean? And they feel heard. And most of my mistakes have been solving the wrong problem in the first place, thinking like, they said they needed X, so let's just go build X, to solve it. And when that wasn't really it at all, that I needed to ask a whole bunch of different questions in order to really get at the heart of it. And for me, embracing design thinking, human-centered design is what's at the heart of it. And the source of all of my royal screw-ups have, at least a lot of them anyway, have come from that in my world.
And I mean, making mistakes, solving the wrong problems. That's a phenomenal snippet of, challenges out there. You got to figure out the right problems to solve. And last time I checked, they don't just teach you this in a book or in a seminar. You kind of have to have some gray hair and made the mistakes. So, Stephen, in your world, being the top technology executive at a manufacturing company, how do you deal with challenges of being technical enough to lead your technical and engineering organizations, yet being business savvy enough to justify your world to non-technical executives and investors and board members and CFOs that maybe just look at dollars and direct cost and benefit? How do you manage that in your world?
Yeah. So number one is that knowing those customers and talking to those customers is the heart, because that is what we are all here for. And so I think that is the way, the path to having meaningful discussions with those other audiences is to be able to talk in terms of the customer and what you're doing for them, what you're doing for our channel partners, and talking to your efforts in those terms. So I don't go in and talk about a huge data management project. I talk about how we're going to make it easier to buy our stuff and make that a more joyful experience. And I think that is a really big heart of it. But also at the core of it, when I was a little kid, when I was 7 years old, I wanted to be Batman. And like, I was obsessed with, I love Batman.
Superman. Okay.
Yeah. So you get what
I
I'm talking
wanted
about.
to be Superman.
Yeah, and over the years, I realized that Batman probably is not an option career-wise. But there's an element of that I think is still true. Is Batman's otherwise doesn't have superpowers aside from a lot of money.
That's his superpower, being rich.
I guess that is, but it's all about this idea of technology helping people and approaching and trying to establish that my role that I play with my peers is I'm there to be the Batman. I'm there to know enough about the utility belt and what's in there that I can see what's happening in the world and say, here's what we can do to save the day. You know what I mean? And so talking through the lens of the customer, but also helping them understand where I'm coming from as I see myself as the blend of those things has seemed to be effective over the years.
I love it. And so is your superpower just being super rich and you know how to do it?
No way. I work for a manufacturing company. We don't have it.
So I know a topic you're passionate about is upskilling the workforce and using AI to do that. Talk about that if you would.
Yeah, so we have a robust AI community of practice in our company, which is fantastic, about giving them the bumpers on the road so you don't get into things that you shouldn't, but also giving them the chance to find the opportunities that really do create value and go through training like LinkedIn Learning training and such to build the skill set up and support each other along the way. The key here is we wanted it to be a community, and it's not an IT thing, it's a community. IT is just making sure that the community's staying safe and going along the right paths there. But also an element of that is enabling leaders to talk about their own version of how AI is part of what they do. Our operations leaders, our sales leaders, to make sure that they talk about it and about how they think it plays to help do what they do better. And that has been the most fun part of it is, it's not just the CTO talking about it. I've got our salespeople out talking with our customers about how we leverage AI to serve them better. And so that's super exciting for me to see that start to happen, and genuine excitement about the capabilities that they're getting. That's just so much fun.
It's really hard to instill in people these days that for any role you're doing, you need to learn AI to be more productive or you're going to be left out. AI will replace jobs of people who don't learn AI. And I don't care what your role is, what you're doing. It's a great opportunity to be more productive. And, one of the things that really makes me mad is universities right now are really struggling with teaching AI to students because they believe it breaches the ethical code of cheating. And especially from a computer science perspective, new graduates are having a really hard time getting job. Companies are telling universities, you got to teach the computer science majors how to use AI to be more productive. And they're not there yet. And, these fresh grads are, if for computer science degrees, when they are getting jobs, it's often on boring projects or government type state or federal projects where they're not using AI at all. And you're really limiting yourself. And hopefully we could smack universities over the head because, it's either AI will replace jobs if you don't learn it.
Right. And it will also create new opportunities, like we talked about with
Yes.
governance and such. I've been working with a lot of local nonprofit organizations in our community here to create a pipeline of talent that understands governance. I think that this is such an amazing reset moment where there's not people with already 40 years of experience on this.
Yes.
And this is where people that ultimate have historically not even had access to some of these jobs can now have it. And we could be creating a pipeline of talent that knows how to do things like governing AI agents and adopting some of the principles from IT general controls work into AI agent controls. This is not something to fight. This is something to embrace. And I'm with you on that front. And how do we create more opportunities for people that are entering the workforce through this? Because they're needed. And you're right, is why start with a disadvantage? In the workforce. This is a great reset. This is a chance where they can go into places that might have been really difficult before because, it's new ground. It's a blue ocean.
And most of the best training out there is free for it
Exactly.
because everybody wants to train you how to use their models better. And so cost isn't even a barrier. It's a matter
Right.
of bearing down and putting the time in to learn.
Right. So I really look at it as like it's a bit of a moment of abundance, not a moment of when things are limited. Is
Exactly.
look at all that. There's an abundance of ways to approach this for people. Yeah.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for getting uncensored with us today. You've really given me a whole fresh perspective of how software engineering comes into play with large manufacturing companies. Hats off to you for breaking the norm and growing to the top tech role in one company for your career. And that is just phenomenal. I love the energy and passion you bring to the table. Before we wrap, Stephen, what's some no BS advice you have for tech leaders out there trying to build, scale, or even just survive in these interesting times?
You got to talk to your customers, get in front of them. Even if you're not comfortable, you got to hear from the people buying your stuff and using what you do. Get out there, even if you're not comfortable. I'm telling you, that's the key to the game.
Awesome advice. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thanks so
That's
much
it.
for having me. I love it.
That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, we'll just share it with your competitors. That's probably the edge they've been looking for. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time.
That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.